The LA area's San Gabriel Valley has a population of around 2 million people, per estimates. If the San Gabriel Valley were its own city, it would be America's fifth largest city, behind Houston, but ahead of Phoenix. And yet, the San Gabriel Valley doesn't have that much in the way of rapid transit. So much of the rapid transit that does exist runs along highways, which, last time I checked, doesn't have any jobs or homes. You have Metrolink San Bernardino line, which does a lot of running along the highway. You have the A line, which does a lot of running along the highway. And you have the J line, which, you guessed it, does a lot of running along the highway. And I have a corridor in the San Gabriel Valley that isn't along the highway, and also deserves better transit. That corridor is Garvey Avenue. It's a corridor that contains LA Metro's Line 70, which actually has significantly higher ridership now than before the pandemic. It's one of the highest ridership buses east of downtown LA, and its ridership high enough that I'm going to propose light rail for it. The first stop of such a line would not be on Garvey Avenue, though, but in downtown El Monte, right on Main Street and Tyler Avenue. It's not quite where the El Monte Metrolink station is, but it's only a 4-minute walk to the Metrolink station. Therefore, I don't think it's any hardship if someone wants to go between Metrolink and this light rail line. This line would then go along Main Street until it gets to Santa Anita Avenue. And then the line gets on Santa Anita Avenue. And there'd be a stop at the El Monte Transit Center on Santa Anita Avenue. Most of the land use around the transit center is, how do I best put it? Suboptimal. But the purpose of this stop is to offer transfers between the light rail and a bunch of bus lines. And when I say a bunch, I mean it. The line then gets to Garvey Avenue. At the intersection of Garvey Avenue and Santa Anita Avenue, there'd be another stop. This stop wouldn't add much from a bus connectivity standpoint, but it would serve an area of high population density, which is important in its own right. The following stop would be at Garvey Avenue and Rosemead Boulevard. The land use here isn't exactly amazing, but this stop is about offering bus connections, namely to LA Metro Lines 266 and 287. Well, particularly Line 266, because there isn't a lot of ridership for Line 287. There'd then be a stop at Garvey Avenue and San Gabriel Boulevard. It's the same song as the bus stop before. Mediocre land use, but a worthwhile bus connection. That bus connection is to Line 20 for Montebello bus lines. The following stop would be at Garvey Avenue and Garfield Avenue. It is in downtown Monterey Park, meaning that it's a stop at a center of commerce. Something I don't think we've really had since the start of this line in El Monte. This also offers a connection with Line 30 for the Montebello bus lines. There'd be a stop at Garvey Avenue and Atlantic Boulevard. Given the connection with a bus line that has healthy ridership, as well as the high-density development on Atlantic, this is arguably the most important north-south street in the San Gabriel Valley to connect this light rail line to. The line then winds along Garvey Avenue to the 10. And on the 10, I'd have a stop at Cal State LA. It is the only proposed stop for this line that would be by the highway. But it's a worthwhile stop, because it would serve a school with over 19,000 undergraduate students. The line would then continue on the 10 until it gets to Marengo Street, and then the line would turn onto Marengo Street. At Marengo Street and State Street, I'd have a stop. This would serve the Los Angeles General Medical Center, which has over 8,000 employees. A hospital with that many employees, not even speaking of families and friends of patients, is going to be a good ridership driver, I think. The line then gets to Union Station, after a little bit of street meandering. And that's where I'll end this line for now. I will likely propose a further extension to this line in a future video. Before getting into my thoughts on this proposed line, I ask people to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content on imagining better mass transit in the United States. I'll also add that it was a comment to a previous video on my channel that resulted in my prioritizing the making of this video. Namely, a comment that asked me about the possibility of proposing a line for the San Gabriel Valley. Let that show that yes, your comments do make a difference. Anyway, now for my thoughts. A huge benefit that must be highlighted is the connection to downtown Almani. There is huge ridership potential with any light rail line extension to Almani. Just look at the ridership for the current J line at Almani. And that's despite the fact that it is a bus. And at that, a bus that runs along a highway for the most part. I think the ridership potential for a light rail line that serves more destinations and doesn't run along a highway for the most part is immense. I also think that there is immense ridership potential for the Cal State LA and LA General Medical Center stops, despite the currently modest ridership for these stops on the J line. But also, putting those two locations on a train line that offers more destinations east of downtown LA might help. In contrast, the current J line only stops at those two locations and El Monte east of downtown LA. Looking at the line as a whole, I considered several alignments for east-west routes in the San Gabriel Valley. Along the 10, where the current G line bus rapid transit is. On Garvey Avenue, on Valley Boulevard, and on Main Street and Las Tunas Drive. I chose to have a fair bit of the line run on Garvey Avenue, because that's the most heavily used east-west bus line in the San Gabriel Valley. It makes sense to propose rail where there is already significant demand for buses. That said, there are a couple of stops for this line near the 10. The decision to have this line run along or near parts of the 10, where the J line currently is, was more challenging. It raises questions like, can this line exist along with the J line? If not, what should happen with where the J line currently runs? And should I prioritize a rail proposal that's not as close to the J line? The answer to my third question is no. Because, well, I'm going with the corridor with the highest mass transit ridership in the San Gabriel Valley. And as for the first question, the question of whether this line should exist along with the J line, my answer is yes. Here's the way I think of it. The J line can sort of be like an express service, being faster than the light rail line, but also serving fewer destinations than the light rail line. This proposed line, in contrast, would be slower than the J line, but would stop at more destinations. So, having this light rail line along with the J line would be like having express and local service, albeit in a more unofficial way than in a place like New York City. Another question for the comment section below is where I should take this proposed line next, beyond downtown LA. Should I have it go northwest and then west, towards that line I have for Sunset and Santa Monica Boulevards? Should I have it go south on a corridor like Avalon, once it gets through downtown LA, of course? Or should I have it go west of downtown LA, by way of a heavily used corridor like Venice Boulevard? Or are none of my ideas satisfactory? I'm asking myself, I'm also asking video watchers for their thoughts in the comment section below. My current preference is for a line that goes along an east-west corridor west of downtown LA, just to keep it an east-west line as consistently as possible. Doing that would also better ensure that this line doesn't just run near the J line for its entire route. But I'm open to being swayed differently. And on that note, thank you for watching and have a good day.